Hailing frequencies open and welcome aboard Treks and Tangents. I'm your co-host Brian.
And I'm your co-host Jaci. I'm the Star Trek newbie who just treks off on tangents.
And I'm your Star Trek expert who is here to get the tangents back on track. Each episode we watch and talk about a different Star Trek episode. And this week we watched
Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 7, What Are Little Girls Made Of?
Episode 7 for Star Trek, but Episode 8 for our podcast, counting, of course, the estranged failed pilot, The Cage, as I always like to point out. I really can't wait for the next season so that this counting irregularity goes away, but here we are, Episode 8. How you doing, Jaci?
I, too, am confused because I always write Episode 8 in my notes when it's supposed to be Episode 7.
I think coming up, there might be an opportunity to rectify that situation. We might cram 2 episodes together, but I don't want to spoil anything. We'll have to see, but maybe we'll get that fixed. I also like episode 8 of our podcast as a milestone because in all of the reading and research that was done leading up to launching this podcast, it seems like the majority of podcasts that start up and then flicker off and don't make it to episode 8. So we're here.
That's a good thing.
So far. So
don't be jinxing us.
No, God, no. It's been fun to watch the podcast slowly grow. Of course, it takes much longer than 8 episodes to grow anything. We've seen the numbers. We've seen the comments. We've seen the support on Patreon. So again, just wanted to take an opportunity to thank all of the listeners, whether you support us directly on Patreon, whether you comment, whether you rate and review, or whether you're just a background listener. We appreciate you being here for the journey, and hopefully we continue to provide some form of entertainment to you.
And don't forget to share our podcast so your friends can like it too.
Yes, the biggest thing that you could do besides subscribing on Patreon, besides liking or reviewing the podcast on whatever platform you consume it on, sharing it with a friend, telling someone about it, referring someone to our podcast, whether they like Star Trek, whether they like sci-fi, whether they just like hearing a couple of people argue about science fiction, please send them our way. We have to revisit our Turbolift tease from last week.
We don't have to do that.
No, it's tradition. We have to do that, Jaci. Last week, we gave Jaci the title of this week's episode, and without any other information or without any other prompting, Jaci
failed.
Tried to guess the plot, I think is what happened. Anyway, I have it here in front of me. Jaci started by saying that she thought the episode would be about everything nice, but, I'm sorry, what was the title again?
It was rough.
It's a rough title out of context. So we gave her the title again, and then Jaci again said, quote, "Why would they name it this?" Especially after the episode before, which was Mud's Women. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say sugar plum and cinnamon because I don't want to get us canceled. So you were answering the literal question of what are little girls made of and not what the plot was. We had a back and forth conversation, and then you asked for a hint. And the hint was the episode plot is centered around a relationship with Nurse Chapel. And then you exclaimed that you didn't even know who Nurse Chapel was. But then I reminded you who she was, and you said, your final guess. Well, obviously, we're going to learn more about Nurse Chapel.
And we do.
So, Jaci, how accurate do you think your prediction was this week?
I still failed, but we learned a little bit, but I failed.
It's an interesting title for sure compared to some of the past episodes.
It's the wrong title. It's so stupid.
It really doesn't have any sort of tie-in that I can name so much. I think it's just weird. It's definitely someone's trying to tie in this idea of the androids and the artificial life, but they really don't ever address it in the episode. So I don't know that this would have been one that you could have guessed.
Well, I mean, if they're going to hint towards that nursery rhyme, they could have included little boys. What are they made of? Because we take a peek at both genders.
Well, hold that thought, Jaci, for a later episode.
Uh-oh.
But what did you think of the episode? What are your initial impressions?
I hated it.
Why did you hate it?
Because instead of being creative with their misogyny like last time, that was blatant this time. And we were like running around in circles and never really got an answer until the very end. And then, on to the next planet. I didn't like it.
What examples of misogyny existed in this episode? Because I'm going to tell you, I like this episode.
Of course you would.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, literally, hello, pretty lady, kiss that man. Okay. Like, no, I'm over that. That's not cool. But I see good merit, but I just don't like, I don't know. It wasn't exciting and intriguing like all the others.
Okay.
I can kind of see where it was going, and I'm the worst at foreshadowing. And if I could see what was happening,
So you figured out by the end of the episode, you knew that Dr. Corby was an android.
yes,
Okay. I can see that. I think but at the same time, I think that that's a normal progression for a Star Trek episode's plot is to not leave the viewer completely in the dark. I think Star Trek is built around the idea of getting the viewer to the final answer before the characters. I think that's how the show is set up partially. I really like this episode in that, one, I'll just point out, fantastic set design. We have the very elaborate cave system, sets and dressing. It is not an episode that takes place all on the Enterprise using 2 or 3 different sets. There's multiple scenes in those cave systems, and I am sure that it is just 1 or 2 sets being redressed and fancy camera angles, but they did a fantastic job with that. But I also really enjoy the plot. This is just a fun sci-fi adventure. I get your point to the character of Andrea being another female character that doesn't serve initially any other purpose than being something to look at and an object of sexual desire.
and don't forget the girl fight over the one man.
And there is the fact that there is the quote unquote girl fight over the one man. I don't know. I certainly think that it is not as egregious of an episode as some of the ones we've seen in the past.
I can understand that. Then tell me why, if it's supposed to be a planet that's 100 degrees below zero, that only one character is wearing warm clothes and poor Nurse Chapel is wearing nothing and Andrea only has on like overalls.
Yeah, well, because they're underground is the reason why they can survive. They say that in the episode that the inhabitants of the
Correct.
planet go underground when the sun starts to die, and that's how they were able to continue to exist for many, many centuries.
True, but still, Kirk, because eventually it's only just Kirk and our girl, Nurse Chapel, who beam down to this freezing planet, but no coat in sight.
No, because they're beaming down into an underground location. When they beam down,
They beam down though above, like on the planet. They have to like find the entrance.
they beam into an entryway that leads to the cavernous systems.
Oh,
But if you look closely, there is what you can see behind them is the frozen exterior of the planet, the surface of the planet, but there's a window there. And you can tell there's a window because you can clearly see Kirk and Chapel's reflection in the window.
oh, I was busy reading the little CC caption thing.
Yeah. So when they beam down, they're beaming down into like an entry hall. There's no exposure to the planet's surface. And I think they do that specifically. They beam into that area because before they beam down, they have the communication from Dr. Corby explaining that he's existed underground for 5 years. I assume that he would have sent up transporter coordinates to send them to that entryway because he's supposed to meet them there,
True.
according to him. So that's why they don't beam down with a coat. They're beaming down into the same environment that he's lived in for 5 years.
It's just weird.
Such is the nature of Star Trek. Weird.
Well, still, Andrea's half naked also, and everybody else has long sleeve uniforms. See? Grr.
Also, normal trope of Star Trek. If you like this episode and you like her costume, I've got an episode of The Next Generation we'll eventually get to where they beam down to a planet and everyone's wearing white. And I'll just leave it at that. Star Trek fans know exactly which episode it is when Wesley gets in trouble for that. So,
over my head.
We'll get there. But enough of our initial impressions. Jaci, why don't you walk us through the plot of the episode?
We start on our Enterprise, and they're just like not driving, they're flying around, but they're going to try to rescue Nurse Chapel's fiance, love of her life, Dr. Corby, who is also this fantastic, they call him the Pasteur of like archaeology or whatever. We all know about Pasteur, right? He actually, pasteurized milk. Now it's safe. Don't get me started on the whole
unpasteurized.
Yeah, we don't want to go there. I was able to understand that aspect. So this guy is supposed to be fantastic and amazing, which is why Nurse Chap Christine, like she goes back and forth from all of her names, wants to make sure first of all, she knows he's alive. Like he is a man that knows what he's doing. She has ultimate faith. And then Kirk has to remind her, we've tried twice and nothing, but the faith she has in him is kind of like a fairy tale.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of the Enterprise's mission is this is the third attempt by Starfleet to figure out what happened to Dr. Corby. Don't really get into why the first two expeditions failed. I don't believe.
Well, they hint that he's underground, and that's why they couldn't find him.
Yeah, so I guess the other two ships showed up, weren't able to reach him, and then took off.
Because they didn't bring their coat either, and they'd be freezing.
Yeah, because they didn't bring their coat. They didn't want to beam down to the freezing planet. We've seen enough times where cold temperatures and Starfleet officers don't mix. But we do this expedition, third time's the charm, get a communication or hailing message from Dr. Corby from underneath the planet in that cave system up to the Enterprise. So that they do get confirmation and that Nurse Chapel's instincts were correct, that Dr. Corby is still alive. Or is he?
Oh. And then weirdly, before the credits start to roll, they all like White Christmas-esque get all together and are just like smiling this weird happiness. And the two in the background, one I thought was wearing a robe, but thankfully I watched it again because, I watched it multiple times. He just happens to have a very loose pajama-like uniform. So he was not wearing a robe on the deck.
Yeah, it was very reminiscent to maybe what, if you go all the way back to the original pilot with the doctor in Pike's quarters giving him the martini, he wasn't really wearing a uniform either. He was just wearing a blue bathrobe.
Yeah.
Which in the pilot episode, in Pike's quarters, that was kind of explained away because the doctor was off duty. He had been woken up. He wasn't coming from the sick bay. But is this an example of them reusing clothing or costumes from the failed pilot in previous episodes? I don't know.
I just found that odd. And I really want Yohora's, I say butcher her name. I want her little weird earpiece. Gotta find it.
The thing that looks like it
it's
almost
like an antenna.
It's like an antenna. It reminds me of like a metallic, the honeycomb kitchen utensil that if you watch a commercial.
An egg beater?
Not an egg beater. If you watch a commercial for Honey Nut Cheerios, the thing that they dip into the thing of honey and they pull it out, it looks like.
Yes, that's a wooden dowel with a circle at the bottom.
Yeah, there's a name for it. We're both going to fail. We're going to look it up when we're done.
But yes.
It looks like that.
We'll breed that together.
Yeah.
I still don't think that I think Spock is still a bit hesitant though about this whole. Are we sure it's him? And then Christine's like, "Have you ever been in love, Mr. Spock?" And then I can imagine her nowadays just be like doing the 3 snaps and go, "Uh-huh." And then the opening credits start.
Yes.
And then surprisingly enough, after the credits, we only have one captain's log when Kirk basically repeats everything we already just said. But he is excited to know that he's alive at least. So once they're in contact with Dr. Corby, Dr. Because Kirk's like, "We'll be right there. We're bringing a party. We're gonna get you up here. Just tell me what we need. Let's get you out of there. I'm sure you miss your loved ones. Blah blah blah." And the doctor is kind of sheepishly, "Do you mind if you just come alone really quick? I have a predicament." And Kirk agrees that yes, that's a weird question, but sure. And too bad I'm bringing someone else. And then Christine pops up and goes, "Hi, Roger." And he's like, "Christine?" And so, yes, the both of us will be beaming down so we can reunite. And then the doctor has to take it or else he's not going to get what he wants. And then it's like super quick beam room
Beam room. Yep. Yep.
We're in the beam room.
Yep. 8 episodes in, folks. We're calling it the beam room.
And then that's when they arrive on the freezing planet that they should have had a coat, but they're at the entrance.
The part that you can see the window and their reflection in.
And I think I forgot to say that we're on planet Exo 3. The names they come up with, is crazy. And Spock believes it once was inhabited, but because the sun started to fade, that's why it's 100 degrees below zero. The inhabitants went underground to be warm, and that's why everybody has kind of said, "Well, he can't be alive anymore. It's been 5 years." So we should probably remind you of that.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that because you have an archaeologist going to the planet, Dr. Corby goes there for a specific reason, so they had to have known that there was some kind of intelligent life on the planet at some point. So I guess Dr. Corby's mission would have been to examine or investigate if they had survived the sun going dark and the planet freezing over. I don't know that it'd be interesting to know if there was any communication with Corby after he arrived and discovered the remnants of the inhabitants of the planet living underground, if that information had made it back to Starfleet, or if he had just arrived and then maybe immediately disappeared. I don't really think
They never tell us, and I think that's why the crew is so excited to hear that he's alive. And with his being alive, he has to have some crew and a lot of material that has to be transported. Like the assumption is that's their assumption. But then it's kind of a letdown when he's like, "No, no, no, don't come. Just you. Oh, Christine can come. Okay." So they're there. But the doctor did not meet them at the rendezvous point like he said he would. So they just start going into the cave, and Dr. Corby is not there to meet them as planned. Kirk decides to call down 2 security crewmen so that everybody could be safe. Because, he still has no idea what they're dealing with. So we have Matthews and Rayburn that beam down. Remember that. Kirk also says, "Matthews, you're coming with us. Rayburn, you stay here at the mouth of the cave and then check in as we go." So they the 3 of them start wandering through this cave.
Kirk, Chapel, and
Matthews. Thank you. And then, as they're going, and then very dramatically, Christine kicks a rock and it falls down into the great abyss of the cave. And they just gets more scary and dangerous. And that's when they start hugging the wall even more.
Yeah, and we get a lot of different shots of this quote unquote cave system. Again, it's probably one or two set pieces, but the way they use the camera angles and lighting, it really adds, at least when I watched it, it really added to this feeling of an elaborate cave system and that they were exploring many different parts of this system.
And like when we were in school, we learned about those, they're not icicles, but like the little rocks and minerals that come down like a spear or come up.
Stalagmites.
Yes. So they have those hanging around, or, hanging around. But see, I was hoping the show was going to go more on why Matthews was touching the wall more, and no one else was touching the wall, but Matthews kept touching the side and looking at his fingers like there was something on it. So that's why I was thinking something might be happening about that, but they never address it.
It's probably just the actor checking for wet paint.
That's very true, but they never bring it up. So after the fall of the rock, not anybody else, they turn a corner and a bright light is blinding them. It's like, who's there? What's going on? And then a man steps in front of it. Oh my gosh, is that Roger? And he's like, oh, I guess I should turn on the light, the other light, to turn off the bright one. And it's actually Dr. Brown, Dr. Corby's assistant. And Christine's super excited to see him. And Kirk's like, do you know this person? And so, yes, of course. But where is Dr. Corby? And then Brown's like, oh, don't worry. He's been detained, but I'll take you to him. He's very creepy.
He's being super vague and not being, even though Nurse Chapel seems to recognize him and doesn't say anything in the moment, she also seems to non-verbally with her body language express some unease in the way Dr. Brown is acting. Something's off.
Because it's like he doesn't really recognize her.
Right.
Like he knows, well, that's Christine, but that's it. So, okay, we'll follow you. So they're off they go, and then a scream. Poor Matthews has fallen down the cliff.
Into a bottomless pit like the rock.
Yes. So he is gone. And then while they're discussing that, we flash over to where Matthews fell, and this creature who is dressed warmly in white and grays, and he just like scurries away. And this is where I bring up my SG connection, because I want to say that this character whose name is Rook, he has to be the bad guy from SG1. Like they have the same head.
Apophis?
Yeah.
It
might be, I'm probably totally wrong, but even underneath all that makeup, they look a lot alike.
So, Stargate SG1 Season 1 that we use some of the episodes for as test episodes, which you can listen to on our Patreon if you're a crew member, patreon.com/Treks and Tangents. Stargate was filmed in what? The late 90s, early aughts? This episode was filmed in 1966.
Oh, so it's his little brother.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same person. I don't think 30 years later. I have a fun fact about the actor who plays him and how it all ties in, but we'll get to that at the end. But okay, so you think they look very similar?
Yes.
Okay, well, I think you're alone in that opinion, but we'll let you have it.
And then Kirk continues to question Christine about their relationship, because I think Kirk is still feeling off. And this is where
Kirk calls back to the remaining crew member at the beam down site. We'll use Jaci's term for the transporter.
I like it.
And reports to that crew member that Matthews is dead and that Rayburn should continue to remain posted at the entrance at the beam down site. Rayburn acknowledges that that's what he'll do. Kirk also tells Rayburn to reach back up to Spock on the Enterprise to relay the same update and to start making preparations in case they're needed. Kirk also assumes that Rayburn gets to perform this action, but he never does because as soon as Rayburn cuts communication, he again is a victim of Ruck. Ruck arrives and ambushes Rayburn.
We're rounding the bend into a nice furnished room, and Brown is just explaining how about the culture of the planet XO3, how the light it was just everything was turning dark
because the sun was going dark.
Yes, it's been fading for millions of years.
He's basically giving the reiteration of what Spock does with more detail.
Exactly. I think trying to also sell what he is trying to tell them, because he's like, I have all this important stuff to tell you, but we can't tell you yet.
Right, because he does at this point, Dr. Brown does hint at this idea that he explains everything the same that Spock does, but then adds the detail that once the inhabitants of XO3 went underground, they were able to create these mechanoid android servants.
Thank you for saying that, because I was going to butcher that entire phrase.
Yeah, he doesn't get into much detail after that. I'd also would point out that it maybe not be a scientific breakthrough that they made, and this was more of an adaptation to living underground. They created these androids not as an advancement of science and research and technology, but more out of necessity to adapt to their life underground. But then the group enters a living quarters area, escorted still by Dr. Brown.
And once they're in the room, we see a beautiful woman walk in, and she has on the same uniform as everybody else. And it reminds me of Oompa Loompas.
Reminded me of Oshkosh Bagosh, because everyone else is wearing like this one-piece jumpsuit that, like you mentioned earlier, has long sleeves, high necks. She is wearing basically space overalls, for lack of a better term.
Without undergarments.
Yeah, this is the same thing like when you were a kid and you would just throw on your overalls and didn't put on an undershirt. That's what she's wearing.
And Andrea, who Christine has never met, knows exactly who Christine is. She knows exactly who Kirk is. She knows everything. And she just is so thankful. She tells Kirk, thank you for bringing Roger's fiance to him. Like, she never calls him doctor. It's always Roger. And you can see how Christine has like a little jab at her every time she says it. And then finally, Dr. Corby arrives, and he and Christine are reunited. And then they have what I call a John Wayne kiss. It's just smushing their faces together.
Yes. No intimacy coordinator on the set of this episode.
So while that's happening, Kirk's like, oh, shoot, my hour's been up. I need to contact my security guy at the other end to make sure everything's okay. And Rayburn never replies. He's like, hello, nothing. And then that's when Dr. Corby's like, you just stop. You need to know what's happening. Like, that you can't do that right now.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff going on.
Dr. Corby continues his insistence that there be no communication with the outside world, echoing his initial request that Kirk beam down alone with Nurse Chapel, and he doesn't want Kirk to give any information or communicate with the Enterprise. He doesn't want crew members from the Enterprise coming down quite yet.
He even pulls the little phaser gun on him.
Dr. Brown pulls the phaser gun out when the argument between Dr. Corby and Kirk escalates. Dr. Brown pulls it out in a very reactionary, protective manner.
Dr. Brown and Kirk are fighting for the phaser, and in that struggle, Brown is shot. And this is when that large dude named Ruck that we talked about earlier pops in and just easily puts Kirk up against the wall. And as that's happening, her poor Nurse Chapel is screaming because Brown is on the floor with a giant hole in his stomach and what looks like a computer circuit board going off. So weird.
Yeah, it's revealed at this point that Dr. Brown is not human. He's an android.
And then we're back on the Enterprise because the audience needs to gather their thoughts because a lot just happened.
Well, this is also, we get a commercial break in reality.
Oh, that makes sense too.
Yes, we are watching this on Paramount where we have the ad-free version, so we don't have to watch commercials. In 1966, they didn't have that option, so
It was Meow Mix commercial.
we do, yep. So we do get a commercial break between the two acts.
So on the Enterprise, Spock is just waiting there, waiting for the connection from Kirk saying everything's okay. Surprisingly, Kirk connects and is like, we're all great. No worries. Just, prepare for us. And then Spock's like, are you okay? You sound kind of tired. But he doesn't know that Ruck on the planet has a little communicator device and is impersonating Captain Kirk.
Impersonating him perfectly.
Yes, like every nuance in his voice. And I have no idea how he can presume, wow, you must be tired. But then again, Spock is pretty amazing and smart. So Ruck is like, nope, we're fine. Just get ready so that all of our stuff down here can be transported. Once that shuts off, Corby tells Ruck, just like, speak in this voice. Be this person. Be that person. Perfect impersonations. Andrea, Christine, you name it. And then Ruck does something stupid. And Dr. Colby's like, you will not mock Christine. And at that point, all I saw was a man talking down to a dog. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, because
Like,
at this point, we also get some more background from Corby. For context, we're in very sparse living quarters, and it's Kirk, Corby, and Ruck, if I remember correctly. Corby shares with Kirk that when he arrived into this cave system, Corby found Ruck. Ruck is the last remaining android automaton that has survived this previous civilization that used to live on the planet. And Ruck had been tending the machinery, keeping all the lights on, doing all the regular maintenance, and had been doing it for centuries, eons. Not even Ruck, with his android computer brain, can say how many years had passed since he'd been the sole survivor and caretaker of these machines that have been left behind. This is also the part where Kirk directly asks Corby where the rest of the crew is. Is Nurse Chapel okay? Are my two security officers okay? Corby says that Nurse Chapel is fine, but confesses to Kirk that now the other security officer, Rayburn, is dead. And in fact, it was not an accident. Ruck had killed both of them because Ruck was acting on programming to protect Corby and Corby's research. And he viewed those two officers as a threat, but it was not a direct order by Corby to kill them.
which is also foreshadowing because that shows that he can think for himself. It's not all programming.
True. Very, very true.
But then, we're in like I guess it's all the dining room, but I initially thought it was like Christine's quarters. Like they tried to make her comfortable in her own spot so she can calm down.
I don't have any direct evidence, but I want to suspect that Corby's living room, quarters, the dining room, as well as this room, whatever it is, Nurse Chapel's room or whatever, I honestly think this is the same set and it's just been slightly redressed. It's very confusing to know if it is a separate room, if it is a completely different area of this inhabited space that Dr. Corby is living in, or if it's the same room and they're just moving furniture around between scenes. I don't really know.
I wouldn't put it past it that it is the same set because when they first walked in, I remembered the dance hall from last episode when it was just rock.
Right.
I was like, oh, we're all going to party some, but no party here. So Andrea flat out asks Christine, "Are you unhappy? Why are you upset? Why don't you like it when I call him Roger? I mean, that's his name." Like, literally, Andrea asks all the hard questions. And Christine can't really answer that because I don't think she knows what to say. She's just still stunned.
Well, it's a little. Let's bring up the fact that it's a little weird that
Your fiance is hanging out with a pretty lady?
going back even further, you're engaged and your fiance goes off on an expedition and goes missing for 5 years. It's never really addressed in the show. Are they still engaged? 5 years have passed. Isn't that do they need to pick their relationship up at some point in the past before the engagement to reconnect? I don't really know. I can't really tell based off of Nurse Chapel's reactions. I certainly get the impression from Dr. Corby that he wants to continue on with the relationship as if nothing has happened.
Yeah.
I would also suspect that's partially because of the way his brain is programmed, foreshadowing. But you can't really tell from Nurse Chapel. She has feelings for him. She cares for Dr. Corby. But does she have the same level of connection in her own brain toward Dr. Corby where they should still be engaged and continue on a relationship? I don't know. I can't answer that. It's not really addressed.
So now I think I'm with you that they're all in the same room, just like a studio apartment, because Kirk and Corby arrive, and that's where Corby shows off Andrea as being so lifelike. She even has a pulse. Again, very creepy. The different skin tone of her face, the warmth of her body, and they even hint that she can do everything but that. Not really fun.
Yeah.
To think about poor Christine.
But this whole time, all of these demonstrations, underlying point to them is Dr. Corby is trying to convince Kirk that all of this work, all of this research is, one, vitally important, and two, has to remain a secret from everyone who doesn't agree with point number one, that it's vitally important. This whole time, Dr. Corby's whole purpose is to convince Kirk that Dr. Corby's research must continue and it must be able to be allowed to continue in secrecy.
Exactly. And it's mechanical. They don't have logic, no emotion, nothing. I mean, he gives them orders, Andrea does what is told, and next task. But then Kirk comes back with, then why are two of my men dead? He did that on his own. You didn't say that.
Right. Kirk's underlying counter argument or resistance to this whole scenario is to continue to point out all of the holes in the logic of Dr. Corby's way of thinking, the android's way of thinking, and to catch them on loopholes and technicalities.
And he's like, Dr. Corby says, well, let me show you how we make an android. And we flash into a laboratory and what looks like a merry-go-round. But we have this giant pillow-like man, like it just looks like a pillow on one side. And I really don't know how they got Captain Kirk to lie on the other side voluntarily.
Yeah, there's no real explanation to that. I'm glad you pointed that out because we do have a very hard cut between everyone talking in this dining room, living quarter space, hard cut to the laboratory. Kirk is now naked and strapped down on this carnival ride, merry-go-round type situation with a dividing board. And yeah.
I was like, oh, they must have like not a prisoner, but another friend. He's going to be the part of the experiment. But then it's Kirk. That is the biggest question I have, I think, about this episode.
The only the only explanation that I can think of is that Ruck physically overpowered Kirk and stripped him naked and forced him to lie down, maybe at phaser point, maybe not. I don't think Kirk would voluntarily participate in this experiment, but...
So, Dr. Corby tells Andrea to start the machine, and it literally starts going in a circle. That again, another carnival ride, that little spaceship that goes super, super, super fast and makes you go against the wall.
Called the Gravitron.
Thank you. It's reminded me of that. A merry-go-round Gravitron.
Yeah, and this is a good several minute scene where we watch this thing spin up. We watch a very, very cool for the time special effect camera trick where all of a sudden the human pillow, as Jaci has dubbed it, disappears, and we now see that there is we can tell it's Kirk even when it's spinning at full force, but it slows down, and we get this dramatic reveal to Chapel, because there's a divider. Kirk can't quite see it, but he knows what's going on as well somehow, that the pillow has turned into an android, is now Kirk.
So while we have two physical Kirks, identical, Dr. Corby then explains, well, we also need to now make identical brains, memories, thoughts, the voice. All of that has to be the same.
We have to imprint the mental onto the physical.
Thank you. And that is Rock's job, I guess. So he pushes those buttons, and then as that's happening, Kirk starts to say, mind your own business, Mr. Spock. That's nothing to do with you. All kinds of, you're a half-breed interference.
He says, he starts giving himself this little chanting mantra where he says, quote, mind your own business, Mr. Spock. I'm sick of your half-breed interference. Do you hear? Which, of course, he does because he wants to corrupt this transfer. He wants to imprint this completely uncharacteristic thought in the android's brain so that, again, foreshadowing in the future when the android ends up back on the Enterprise and interacts with Mr. Spock, it gives Mr. Spock a clue that this is not A-okay, something is amiss.
And as that finishes, it's just flashes and large, loud buzzing. And then we jump into a dining table where Andrea has taken Nurse Chapel to have lunch, and Kirk joins her, or so she thinks. So they're having lunch, and Kirk's just quizzing her. And then, like a special one, what if I gave you an exact order to betray Roger? And then poor chat Christine, why would you ask me to do that?
Because he's fucking crazy.
And then it's like, that was the magical words, because in come the real Kirk, the doctor, and even Ruck. And they're like, ha ha ha, you couldn't even tell the difference. And then Kirk's like, ha ha, but I got you. You may be able to do all this other stuff, but I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat. And he starts quizzing this android because he's supposed to have all the memories.
Yeah, and again, this is partially a scenario that's been set up by Dr. Corby because, again, Corby is trying to convince Kirk to be on Corby's side, and so this gives the opportunity for Corby to show off his work, and that this newly created android, without any other prompting or needing any other setup time, is able to fully jump into the role of playing Kirk.
And the two have discussion. Why eliminate joy, imagination, trust, love, all so that you can have a quote unquote better person that doesn't have all those emotions. It's all logical. Like, it's just like the other side of the coin, devil's advocate. So Android Kirk decides that he's going to go back to the Enterprise because, he's got the whole uniform on. So how will they not believe him?
I'll clarify, Kirk Android doesn't decide himself.
That's true.
Dr. Corby orders Android Kirk to go to the Enterprise to get information on where the Enterprise is going, what their itinerary is. Pulling back the curtains, Dr. Corby is looking for some kind of colony that he can use the Enterprise to transport himself and his machinery to this other colony so he can continue his research and it has to be the right size colony. It has to have people, but not too many people, because he's going to start replacing people with their android counterparts. Again, this is all Dr. Corby's plan.
And as he's telling the plan, Kirk is just, the real Kirk, just kind of appeasing him as he's fiddling around with this rope that happens to be on his chair leg. And then when it is free, he jumps up and wraps it around Corby's neck and is like, "You let us free. We're going home. This is wrong." And uses him as a human, again, another shield, so that Ruck can't do anything about it. And Kirk runs away trying to go back the way he came. But remember, Ruck also has to follow commands, and Dr. Corby tells him, protect. So, go kill him. But then we seem to have forgotten that he was also told that he has to follow orders from Christine. So off Ruck goes, and Christine is following as she's running. She's like, "Don't hurt him. You have to obey me too. Don't do anything bad." It's kind of funny, but kind of sad at the same time. And then of course, Kirk, while hiding, he finds the one of those little stagnates that we were talking about earlier. So he's grabbing it, and then it made a sound because Ruck is hunting him. Ruck then uses his little voice changer capability, pretending to be Christine. "I'll help you. I'll save you. Where are you? Just tell me where you are." I'm pretty sure Kirk knows that it's not Christine.
100% Kirk knows it's not Christine. Kirk's not that dumb.
And I think that's why he made that noise anyways, like just to cover everything up. And he gets Ruck to get over to him, tries to hit him with that ice whip. What's it called?
Stalactite.
Thank you.
That's not how you pronounce it.
And it didn't work very well. Well, it looked like that popcorn, that ceiling popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of that.
It's probably made out of pure asbestos, to be honest.
And it didn't make a dent in our Ruck man. And Kirk is hanging on for dear life on the side of the cliff.
Right, because they struggle and Kirk slips and ends up dangling off the side of this bottomless pit. I like to think it's the same bottomless pit that the other crew member fell down.
I mean, I agree with that. And they just look at each other, and finally Ruck, it's like reluctantly pulls them up by one hand. He's like, "Dang it."
Yeah, as the viewer, we have to assume it's because of this conflicting order that he received from Nurse Chapel not to harm Kirk. He's done his job. He's retrieved Kirk in protecting Dr. Corby, but he can't just off and kill him like he did the other crew members because Christine gave him the order not to.
And then we're back on the Enterprise, but only for a short while. It's like Android Kirk rushes past Spock. No pleasantries, no hey, no bye, no get out of my face, nothing. And Spock's like, "Hey, what's up? What do we got to do to prepare to get everybody over here? Tell me what I need to do." And Android Kirk yells at him about being an interference and how he's a half-breed and stay out of his way.
It's the exact same phrase that
he said earlier
was imprinted in his brain by the real Kirk. And again, quote, "Mind your own business, Mr. Spock. I'm sick of your half-breed interference. Do you hear?"
Thank you. So he grabs whatever plans he needs from a cupboard. Not a lot of stuff he grabs, just like a notepad, looks like, and goes back to planet XO3.
But of course, Spock's suspicions are raised, and after Kirk leaves, he starts to form a security team to go after Kirk because, again, he realizes something is wrong. And can I just say, I appreciated this scene in the episode only because it was so short, it was so concise, it did not ramble on. This easily could have been a plot point that was stretched out for an entire act. This could have easily been 10, 15 minutes of filler moments of Android Kirk interacting with different members of the crew and raising all of their suspicions before we get back to the main part of the episode. But the writers chose not to do that. It was a quick 3-minute, 5-minute scene. It accomplished what it needed to, and we get back to the action down on the planet. I just absolutely appreciated that of the episode.
I agree with you. It was just perfect. And it's like once Kirk leaves, everyone gets together because then we're gonna go help something stinky here, and we're gonna go down and figure it out.
Yep. Exact quote of the Vulcan science officer: something is stinky here.
So back on the planet, our doctor and android Kirk are kind of talking pleasantries about the Enterprise, how nice it was to be on there, as they have whatever items Kirk grabbed from the other Kirk's quarters. It's so weird saying all the Kirks, but yeah, like, oh, it's so nice on there. But now we're going to take it over. So after that little pleasantry, we see Kirk, the real Kirk, in his own quarters dungeon holding area. And Andrea walks in and Kirk's like, kiss me. So she kisses him. And then she prepares to strike him because that's what the doctor had told her to do earlier. The pattern. Like a dog. I'm sorry. They know patterns. And Kirk stops her and then starts to kiss her again. And oh my gosh, he's like really grabbing her arm because when he removes his hand, you can see the red marks from his fingers.
Yeah.
Whoa. So they hopefully all is okay. And I mean, he just starts kissing her. And then she's like, no, I'm not programmed for you. She's confused. She doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, this is Kirk's whole plan, is to break through her programming, get down to her base circuitry in her brain and her thought patterns and confuse her and get her to fall into this logic feedback loop where she doesn't know how to process all of the external information and act upon it. So he's getting her to, I guess, romantically fall for him, or at the very least try to get her to be confused as to, I'm supposed to be polite to you, but I was never ordered to become romantically involved with you. It does eventually work.
Yeah, because I mean, he's like petting her hair and making her look at herself in the mirror as she's trying to get out of there. I mean, it is kind of harassment too. Very creepy of real Kirk.
Is it? She's an android.
Well,
I'll be that guy. I'll be the guy to point out that she's not human.
I know, but she said no. So, and she's a lady form.
I also don't know where Andrea comes from.
I have no idea.
Was she? I can't remember if it was mentioned if the human Andrea was originally part of Dr. Corby's expedition. I don't think they mentioned that. So Dr. Corby just made her without any reference.
But he doesn't have a female form to copy in the human pillow.
That's what I'm saying, is how did he make her without a human her?
Mad scientist.
Yeah. Fucking sci-fi magic.
And then probably to Andrea's android thankfulness, Ruck walks in and
And Andrea leaves.
Yes.
Important to point out.
And then Kirk is just going all over like, is that emotion I see? Do you disapprove of me touching, your friend, your pal? Like he's like poking at her.
Your master's property.
There you go. And then after he gets there, then he's like, well, tell me about these old ones. I mean, really think back. Why are there no more? Why are you the only one here? Thousands and thousands of years ago, but no one else? Like, what's up? And then Ruck goes on to explain that the androids were smarter, more capable. The humans were afraid of what they could do, and they were starting to, shut the androids down. And the androids did not want that to happen, so they shut the humans down. Yikes. And so that's why he's all by himself.
Well, yeah. Interesting point. You are correct. Yeah. The androids realized that their creators were shutting them down because they feared them. And so the androids rebelled and rose up and killed all of their creators, leaving them behind. Doesn't explain why Ruck is by himself. This was not a battle to the last man and Ruck was the only survivor. It didn't sound like. It sounded like there were many more. Does Ruck not have the capabilities to repair the androids and he's just the last one not to break down? Again,
Oh, good one.
doesn't get into it, but Kirk uses this history provided by Ruck to have Ruck mentally turn against Dr. Corby because,
I mean, he says this is exactly what Corby's doing.
yeah, drawing parallels between Dr. Corby and the old ones. It's almost like a therapy session where Kirk is making Ruck regress back through his memories to remember what happened to the old ones and that they were killed by Ruck and Ruck's people. But in any case, Kirk again is successful in breaking down the programming and getting Ruck to turn against Dr. Corby by appealing to Ruck's sense of survivability and survival instinct and saying, you need to get rid of Dr. Corby because he's eventually going to do what the old ones did. He's going to try to turn you off.
So Dr. Corby and Christine enter the room where Ruck and Kirk already are. Dr. Corby figures out that he cannot control Ruck anymore and decides to get rid of him and shoots him.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a choice.
Yeah. And then we have a hard cut into the hallway, and our dear Andrea is still super confused on what's happening. And, well, she doesn't know, but Android Kirk is walking in the hallway, and she's like, kiss me. And he's like, that is illogical. And she shoots him.
Yeah.
It was like weird.
Well, because again, Kirk has confused her with his actions. The real Kirk has confused her with the kissing and the compliments. And so he's planted this confusing information in her brain. So when she sees him, she assumes that it's the real Kirk and not the android Kirk. So she tries to continue that line of logic and thought and continue their kissing. And when the android Kirk rejects her, that I think is when her initial programming kicks in. Protect Dr. Corby. And so by protecting Dr. Corby, she has to eliminate Kirk. Again, if this is the real Kirk, which it's not, he's out of his confinement. He's wandering the hallways doing who knows what to undermine Dr. Corby and his research. So she does the only thing that she can think of based on her programming and orders. Protect Corby, kill Kirk. And she ends up killing the android Kirk by mistake.
We're back at Kirk and Corby, and they get into a tussle, and from a doorway, part of Corby's hand is scraped, and instead of blood, we see like that circuitry that was on Brown. And then now he has to start, pleading for his life on how much better it is that we can all be better people if we're androids, and it's no big deal. All good. This is fixable. And Christine is just gutted. She doesn't know really what to do.
Well, and then Kirk employs the same tactics that he's used on every other android in this episode by overriding logic and exploiting the shortcomings in the way that the androids think. Dr. Corby's argument is he's still human. That's what he continues to protest. That's what he continues to say to everyone. And Kirk points out that his actions and his thoughts and what he's saying lack all human qualities and emotions, and it's all just programming logic. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, Andrea comes back into the room, reveals that to everyone that she's accidentally killed the android Kirk. So things are breaking down pretty quickly for Corby here. His whole plan and empire is quickly crumbling.
But he's still on that soul train, that his soul is in there. All is well. And then
it's a very quick ending to, or resolution to this whole thing. Kirk ends up disarming Corby with just his logic and thoughts and speech. So it's a non-violent removal of the phaser. But Andrea doesn't want to give up her phaser. She again is still super confused, is still super brainwashed by Kirk, for lack of a better phrasing. She's still stuck in this thought path and this thought loop of wanting to express affection and love and be romantic. So the news and revelation to her that she has accidentally killed the android Kirk and not the real Kirk short circuits her brain. She starts to profess her love to Dr. Corby. Dr. Corby, I think, has admitted defeat, that his whole experiment has failed. He is no longer human. He is just another android. And Dr. Corby, instead of disarming Andrea with the phaser, pushes the trigger on the phaser and vaporizes both of them in front of Kirk and Nurse Chapel.
Then we have Spock and his team racing in to, save the day. They haven't heard from anybody. So now they have to come in and make sure the captain is fine, Rayburn and Matthews, everybody. And then poor Spock, where's Dr. Corby? We were supposed to be saving him. And Kirk says, Dr. Corby was never here.
Which is true. He never was, as far as when Kirk and Nurse Chapel arrive.
It's just really sad.
Yeah.
Now we're back on the deck, the main deck of the Enterprise.
Called a bridge.
Thank you. Wait, could we be on a boat? I don't know. But
we've talked about this. Starfleet is like a navy. The starships are like regular ships in the water.
I'll work on that for next episode.
So we're back on the bridge.
Yes, the bridge. And Kirk and Christine are just chatting about what's happened. And Christine agrees that she will stay on the Enterprise, be a part of it. I mean, she already has the short dress to go with everything, so she's got that covered. And then Spock kind of just goes on and is like, that wasn't really cool of you to call me that. Half-breed is not really respectful. But I got the idea and I got your plan. And they kind of share a smile and on to the next planet they go.
And roll credits. So, Jaci, what did you think about Season 1, Episode 7, What Are Little Girls Made Of? What are your final thoughts?
I think it has the stupidest title ever.
Agreed. Very out of context title to the episode and the contents. I am sure there could be a huge number of other ways to try to... I get what you said in the beginning, that they're trying to convey this idea of tying it into the fact that these are artificial creations. I want to go out on a limb and say the little girl that is referenced in the title is Andrea, but I think they should have made her a more prominent figure in the episode, a more important character. I think almost even Ruck outshines her in importance to the plot of the episode.
Oh, totally. She's like just a pretty face and body.
Yep.
And even in the description on the streaming service, it says something about finding the doctor and his women. It's kind of like a follow-up of Mud's women. It makes no sense.
But at least in this episode, it doesn't appear that Dr. Corby... I don't think Dr. Corby had any real intention of having a romantic relationship with Andrea. I think that the first instance that we see of Andrea having any sort of romantic inclinations is when Dr. Corby first orders her to kiss Kirk, and that is simply a way for Corby to demonstrate to Kirk that she's following orders, the capabilities of the android. How different would this episode have gone if Dr. Corby chose a different demonstration for Andrea to perform? Something as simple as no interaction with Kirk. What if he just ordered her to do push-ups or jumping jacks or any other number of orders to demonstrate to Kirk what the capabilities of an android would be? Kirk wouldn't have had the ability to brainwash her and confuse her with further romantic advances.
Oh, I guess to your point, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, anyway, I do, as always, have a few fun Tribble tidbits or fun facts about the episode. First airing October 20th, 1966. This is and I had to think back. I think it's true. This is the only original series episode to prominently feature Nurse Christine Chapel, played by, of course, Majel Barrett. She appears in other episodes, but this is the only episode that focuses on her character. So you mentioned that you thought the actor who played Ruck was the same as from Stargate SG-1.
Maybe.
I'll also confess that I had to go back and look. I thought that the actor who played Dr. Corby was a younger Henry Gibson, specifically from Henry Gibson's role in the Tom Hanks movie The Burbs, when he plays the evil doctor neighbor. Just for some reason, those first few scenes that we are introduced to Dr. Corby in person, his mannerisms were very much like that character from The Burbs, but that's just my own thing. Back to the Tribble tidbits from my tangent. Ruck was played by a actor named Ted Cattedy, who also played Lurch in the original Addams Family TV show from 1964. Well, yeah, the guy's like 7'10".
That was my next question. Like, is he really that tall?
Yes, he is absolutely really that tall. So it's not that big of a shock that he played Lurch in the TV show. Fast forward, Majel Barrett would later go on to play the character Roxana Troy in Star Trek The Next Generation, who has a valet who is also an extremely tall individual, plays a very similar style as the character Ruck. The actor's name is Carl Strucken. That actor who played Roxana Troy's valet played Lurch in the Addams Family movie of 1991 and Addams Family Values of 1993.
So they're all connected.
So just fun little 6 degrees of separation, all tying in together. But yeah, if you need an actor who's like 7'10", I don't know how tall he is. He's very tall.
That was platform shoes for him.
No, he is that tall. Jaci kept referring to it as the hangy things in the cave. The stalactite that Kirk pulls down to defend himself or to attack Ruck, if you look at it, it changes from what he pulls down to what he ends up holding. Rewind it, watch it. You'll thank me later. It looks funny.
I'm going to go do that right now.
How about we finish recording the episode and then we can go look back at it?
Yes. Okay. I will. I got excited.
This is the first appearance of androids in Star Trek, of course. Kind of an interesting topic. It gets expanded upon greatly the more you look into it. Artificial life and artificial intelligence in Star Trek is a very broad subject and leads to some very interesting plot points. I briefly went back and tried to remind myself what the difference is between these androids and data and lore that we encounter in the Next Generation. The difference, of course, being, I think, is not so much the physical appearance or that the creation of androids, but data and lore had very specific positronic brains that were very advanced that isn't repeated in other androids. But anyway, if you're looking for a deeper dive, go look up all the different instances of androids and artificial life in this vein in Star Trek and just see all the different examples of androids. You might be surprised to see the full listing.
I'm telling you, Star Trek was before its time because we're doing AI now.
Yep. Also important of the first for Star Trek, everyone jokes about the red shirts of Star Trek, especially in the original series, how they are disposable. We reference it in our ratings. The number of times that a red shirt crew member beams down to a planet and is very quickly killed. This is the first example of that in Star Trek. We've seen other characters killed. They weren't red shirts. And we'll see other characters killed later. But this is going to be the first example of a disposable red shirt member beaming down and just immediately dying without any consequence.
But isn't that the point of, quote, security?
I don't necessarily think that Starfleet would consider their crew members cannon fodder in that sense. It's more of the fact that these people are instantly dying and then they have to go get replacements at some point. So,
true.
and the fact that no one else, at least for a long time, no one else is going to readily die off as quickly as members of the Enterprise as these disposable, unnamed red shirts, unnamed non-main characters. And my last tidbit, of course, body count of 7. 2 humans, the red shirts, and 5 androids, I think I counted. But am I right? We got Dr. Brown, we have Ruck, Android Kirk, Andrea, and Dr. Corby. So yeah, 5 androids. But those are your Tribble tidbits. And as I just recently mentioned, this is the part of the episode where we give the episode a rank. We pretend that the episode is a member of our fictitious crew, of our fictitious starship for the season, and we assign a Starfleet rank to the episode. The rank not only reflects how entertaining we found the episode when we watched it, but it also implies how important we find the episode to be to our fictitious crew. A higher rank means we were more entertained by the episode, and the episode is more important and valuable to our crew. A lower rank means that we weren't very entertained, or we just find the episode to not be very valuable to our crew. Looking at our ranks, we go all the way at the bottom: ensign, lieutenant junior grade, lieutenant, lieutenant commander, commander, captain, and admiral. We also limit the higher ranks. So as an example, you can only have 1 admiral, 1 captain in our starship. We will, of course, post a full visual representation of the rankings as they stand on Wednesday, the Wednesday after this episode airs. Jaci, you have not ranked any episode higher than a lieutenant commander, which would be about a 6 or a 7 out of 10 on our scale. You also ranked last week's episode, Mud's Women, as a lieutenant commander. What rank would you give this week's episode to join your crew of the USS Galactic Glitterbee?
Well, so far, none of them have deserved to be at the top. Just saying.
Agreed.
And after listening to what you were saying, because you are the expert, so we're going to go with Lieutenant Junior Grade.
Lieutenant Junior Grade, which is the second to lowest rank. That would be a 2 or 3 out of 10. You also ranked, for reference, the naked time on that ranking.
Yes. So let's hope the next one is a bit better, because I have a leaderless ship.
And that's a good point, because if we get to the end of the season and we don't have a captain, we don't have an admiral, we're going to have to do some field promotions at the end to fill those ranks. We, of course, at any time can do promotions or demotions if we deem necessary to make room on a specific rank. Looking at my rankings, I also don't have a captain or an admiral. I do have a commander. Last week, I gave Mud's Women a lieutenant junior grade, which would be a 2 or 3 out of 10, which is what Jaci ranked this episode this week. And I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to put this up all the way back up at commander, an 8 or a 9 out of 10.
Are you serious?
Yeah, which is where I put the naked time. Again, I think this was a fantastic episode.
All right, do I need to take your temperature?
Nope. I was briefly thinking about it for a moment, but no, we're gonna make this this episode a rank of commander. Again, first introduction to Star Trek for androids, the first introduction of the trope of red shirts being disposable, and it's just a fun episode. Again, I think it nails the pacing perfectly. I mentioned in the moment the brief time that we have the android Kirk go back to the ship and go back down to the planet was absolutely perfect, not drawn out, did exactly what it needed to do. And I think it's a fun episode. It's goofy, it's kind of silly, it's kind of campy, but it's got a lot going for it. At no point did I feel like the episode was being dragged out like so many other episodes. So, yeah, I'm going to give this a rank of commander.
I can see your point.
And just as a reference, as of this recording, IMDb ranks the episode as a 7.5 out of 10.
Again, I lose.
And we'll post a visual of our current rankings up to this episode on our Patreon on Wednesday, the Wednesday after this episode goes live, and that's at patreon.com/Treks and Tangent. We'll be back next week to trek through another episode, but before we go, we'll give our turbolift tease or elevator pitch to the next episode's plot. This is where I'll give Jaci the title of next week's episode, and Jaci, with no other information, having not seen the episode before, will give a brief pitch to the plot based on the title alone. Jaci, next week's episode is entitled Miri.
Can you please spell that and use it in a sentence?
That is Miri. And in a sentence, next week's episode is entitled Miri.
This is not fair because I would think that Miri is a person's name, but from what I've learned, it's going to end up being a planet, some alien, a disease, or even a kind of money. It's going to be something weird.
Yeah, I don't think you can hedge your bet like that and guess all of it. So let's narrow it down to one of those. Planet, person, disease, or currency.
I'm going to say they're going to save something named Mary.
All right. And tune in next week to find out how close Jaci was to the actual plot. If you want more show information, you can find and directly support our podcast at Patreon at patreon.com/Treks and Tangents. We have posted there all of the test episodes we recorded to kind of work out some of the bugs and kinks for these episodes. We used Stargate, SG-1, and Fringe as our background test episodes if you want to listen to those. We have more content planned for our Patreon members, and so hopefully we'll start rolling that out here soon and be able to focus some of our time on that. But we wanted to get some solid episodes out and start building a little bit of an audience before we get that fleshed out too much. Besides Patreon, you can also follow us on X at Treks_Tangents. We're also on Instagram and Blue Sky at Treks and Tangents. Jaci, where can people find you and what you are up to?
I have a lot of stuff brewing. So mainly I'm on Instagram under Jaboom, and I have dog training on my music. I play so many instruments. I have clothing, makeup, and my newest endeavor, I'm making a whatnot store because I have a lot of stuff, and my stuff can be your new stuff.
All right. Looking forward to seeing that go up. You can watch me, Brian, stream a variety of video games over at twitch.tv/PiratePoundTown. On YouTube, I post video games and other random content on my main channel at Pirate Pound Town. And my neglected second child of a YouTube channel, which has coin collecting and other random hobby content, can be found at Pirate Treasure Hunting on YouTube. I post socially on Blue Sky at Pirate Pound Town, and I can be found on Instagram under Pineapple Cannibal because I'm proudly banned as Pirate Pound Town from Instagram. Links to all social media mentioned can be found in the episode description. Thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. We hope you had fun like we did, and we will see you all next week.
Don't forget, Lady Androids, kiss and slap.
End transmission.